Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another episode of the Chocolate Sheikh. Inshallah, today I'd like to deal with loss, and that is as in death. Yet again, we've lost another member of our small little community here in Atlanta, Georgia. And this time we lost a sister who is in her early 60s and has been a Muslim all of her life. She became a Muslim as a young lady after marrying a Muslim man. I guess she was Christian at that time. And she raised a beautiful family of 4 children, 1 boy, 3 girls. And alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah. She was called back by her Lord and is now in the bosom of her Lord. I like to say that she was a wonderful sister. I enjoyed spending time, a part of my life with her and spending time with her. She was a student of mine in my classes. And I'd also like to say, praise be to God, she actually finished dealing with her usuls, right? I personally taught her usuls. And if you know anything about that, that's one of the fundamental things we learn in Islam. That's how it is that you become a Muslim. You can't be a Muslim unless you believe certain things. And one of the things you have to believe to be a Muslim is you have to believe in dying and also going to another life. That your dying is not just the end of your existence, but your dying is actually a continuation of your existence from this plane that we call Earth, or that we call the physical realm, and you move into the spiritual realm now. And of course, we're spiritual beings, right? The spirit is unlike matter. Matter can be destroyed. But when you speak about energy, that's when we're talking about the spirit, right? Energy can't be destroyed like that. Matter can be twisted and destroyed, etc. Energy only changes and then it moves on, but it's never destroyed. We believe as Muslims that that is how our souls are. Our souls are like energy, not like matter. This we know won't stay around long, but the soul is forever. It comes from God and it returns from God. It comes from a source and it returns to the source. All right, so that's Muslim belief. And praise be to God again. She sat in my class and we went through not only the belief of the hereafter, but we also dealt with what it was that our Holy Prophet Muhammad, on him be peace, said about death and the traveling through the process of leaving this physical body and then evolving ourselves through to our next lives. Our Prophet Muhammad, on him be peace, he didn't leave us out uncertain about death. The good thing about believing in the great divines, the good thing about believing in the great sages and the holy prophets is that they give us blueprints. They allow us to see what we ourselves can't see because we just don't have the spiritual acumen, or we don't have the spiritual power, right? It's just like an Olympian. When we look at these great Olympians on the physical front, and every 4 years, we're looking at television to see the best runners in the world compete against each other. The best swimmers compete against each other. You know, the best divers compete against each other. The best gymnasts compete against each other. That's the same thing that we have happening in the spiritual world. This is what it is for the great divines. The great divines are to us spiritually what our great Olympians are to us on the physical realm. So these great spiritual Olympians, they can see things that we can't see, and they can go places in their spiritual selves that we can't go, or we haven't yet learned how to go. So the great Nabi, that is our Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, on him be peace, and his family, he told us, he allowed us to see through his own eyes and through his own spiritual experiences what it's like to die and then make it to the other side. So while our Prophet Muhammad was alive, he would tell us, as Allah revealed to him, what we are to expect when we die. What is our journey to the next life? How is it going to be? So that takes anxiety off of people when you know, right? When you have a knowledge of a thing, anxiety then starts to subside. And one of the jobs of the great divines, the great prophets, is to do just that, to allow us to see what we can't see, to give us a knowledge of the unseen that we need so that we don't have the anxieties about this life nor the next. So I like to say proudly that I was able to teach this particular sister what it is that she needed to know to have her journey explained to her from the beyond. And I like to say that she completed the class, and that gives me a certain type of cooling of the heart to know that she's all right. She had knowledge of this life and she had a knowledge of the next. Dealing with loss is, it could be very hard. I've lost now 4 persons that I've known in the last month, almost a person a week. That's not even to mention the people that I've lost since 2019 when COVID came about. So we are now in a place of loss, and I guess because of my age, I'm close to 60 years old now, I'm getting to the point where I'm losing relatives, that tier above me. I come from Generation X, and of course the generation above me is the boomer generation, and the generation over them I believe they call the greatest generation, and the generation above them was called the silent generation. So the silent generation, which I was born, when I was born, the silent generation, some of them were still around. They're gone now, all right? The next generation, the boomer generation, which would be, of course, my parents' generation, they're leaving us. It's just a few of them left on that tier. And now here I am. I'm not only a Generation Xer, I'm the first year of Generation Xer. So I just miss being a boomer myself. So now I'm in a situation where I'm seeing those tiers just get erased. Allah is calling all these people back, you know, all these folks are leaving. All the people that were part of my life are leaving. And now we as Generation Xers are becoming that tier. That's going to be that last tier before the millennials start to come in. This is our life. This is the way of the world. This is the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is God, highly glorified as He, how He has meant things to be. So we have to learn how to deal with losing our loved ones, even though it's painful and it hurts. So I made this video because I know that I have friends who, and family members who, when they lose a loved one, they really go into dark places and dark spaces. And they need a little nudge and a little reminder, especially if they're believing people, about the reality of this thing called life. Life is not permanent. It's temporary. And we have to always understand that we're only here for a little while. Our Prophet Muhammad has said many things, and other great divines have said many things about death. If we face the reality of it right now in the Western world, I guess you might have up to about 75 years, and that's it. And if that's the case, that means me, myself, I have less than 15 years to live, if that is the case, and that average affects me. Very few of us in the Western world make it into our 80s. Most of us in the Western world die in our 50s, especially the men. So this is our reality. So we can't cling to this life. We have to understand that after this life, there is something else. So our Prophet Muhammad told us that we have to prepare for not only this life, we have to prepare for the next life. And he also had habits, things that he would do, sunnahs, we call them in Islam, traditions, habits, things that he did, that he encouraged others to pay attention to and also apply to their lives. And one of those sunnahs, one of those traditions, one of those habits that our Prophet Muhammad would do is he would visit the graves. And upon doing this, one of his wives, his youngest wife, also other people who loved him, they asked, why do you go out at night? Because he went out at night. Why do you go out at night and visit the graves? Why do you go out there and make these little prayers over these people who have died? And our Holy Prophet Muhammad, on him be peace, said, because it reminds of the hereafter. I visit the graves because it reminds of the hereafter. And he encouraged his wives and his family members to visit the graves. So much so that a generation after him, maybe 2 generations after our Holy Prophet Muhammad, he had one of his granddaughters, Zainab, on her be peace. She's the daughter of Imam Ali and the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, Fatima Tazawra. That is Fatima, the Lady of Light. And she's the eldest girl child. And she said, it is said about her that she actually dug her own grave in her lifetime, and that she would put a stool in the middle of it, climb down in her grave, and sit there and contemplate life and death. She would go down in her own grave that she was going to be buried in with a stool and contemplate life and death. The flimsiness of the life that we live, knowing this thing is very fleeting and it's very flimsy. And she would also concentrate on her akhirah, right? Her next life. What am I doing to prepare myself to make sure that my next life is going to be good, solid, and accepting by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When we leave or pass through this life, that we leave being pleased with Allah and being well pleased by Allah. And that is the goal of the believer. So those of us who are the mu'min, the believing peoples of all these great divine religions, we have to remind ourselves that this life is temporary. I'm talking about the physical life because life is eternal. But this temporary life is very temporary. It's very flimsy and it's very fleeting. So we ought not cling on to it, right? We have to live our lives in both worlds, this world and the next world. And that way we'll have a balanced mentality. We'll have a balanced spirituality about how to accept loss. So when we lose our great figures, when we lose our great leaders, when we lose our loved ones and the soldiers that we grew up with, right? The soldiers in our faith, the people who challenged us on, the people who they clapped you on, the people who chided you and they corrected you when you were wrong, the people who pulled your coattail. Wait a minute, akhi. Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute, ukhti. Wait a minute, sister. What you just said, I don't know if that I agree with that. Or what you just said, I challenge it. Or what you just said, I beg you to do a little more contemplation on it. Think through that a little better, brother. These are the people who are in your lives. When you lose them, then you feel the breaking of the heart, right? But we have to understand that although our hearts may break, we have to put up our hands and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he allowed these people to come into our lives to affect us. That these are the people who shaped us. These are the mirrors, as Prophet Muhammad, on him be peace, was reported to have said. These are the mirrors that we look at. We look at that mirror and they are our reflection back of ourselves. Not themselves, but ourselves. That we could see ourselves through their eyes. Right? And that makes us see our flaws, and it also makes us see our beauties. So I wanted to remind the movement today that loss is all right, because we can't cling on to this world. We have to learn how to let this world go. That's a part of being a movement, a believer. It's a part of the sunnah of the wise ones. It's a part of the traditions and the ways of the wise ones. It's to know how to say, I let this thing go. Like our Christian brothers and sisters say, let go and let God. And like we Muslim brothers and sisters say, Allahu Akbar. You throw up your hands and you say, Allah is the greater, right? Allah is the greatest. That's our way of saying that I know that I'm a nobody in this world. I'm a nobody. I'm a little speck or grain of sand that's traveling through this universe. I'll be here for a minute and I'll be gone the next. So I turn everything over to Allah. Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest, right? And we let this thing go and let Allah do what Allah does. All right? So this is my little message to the believers today, because we're hurt again in our community for this loss. Again, we lost a giant, a little sister who probably was about 5'2", and out of Brooklyn, New York. And she brought a lot of joy to our lives. She brought us very good challenges. She was one of the pillars of our little small community, and she's going to very much be missed. So we will miss you, Sister Khadija. May Allah accept you and pull you into his bosom, which I am sure he has, because you have been a remarkable sister. May Allah bless you. If you guys appreciate this message, do me a favor, like it. And if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel. The Sheikh loves you. Y'all take care. Peace.